In this lesson, we're going to look at why is water important, where is water found, and what is the water cycle. So why is water important? All living things need water in order to carry out their body processes. Specifically, our body is made up of about 72% water. In addition, many living things live in water. The body processes. Without water, nothing can grow. Water allows us to break down food, allows us to grow, reproduce, and it also allows us to get and use materials needed from the environment. Plants and other organisms that make their own food also need water. Plants use water and carbon dioxide to make their own food in the process known as photosynthesis. And remember, photosynthesis is when plants take in solar energy and convert it into glucose. That glucose is then later used for the energy that the plant needs. Habitats. Water provides a habitat for many living organisms. Habitat is a place where an organism lives. Most organisms that live in water are microscopic. They're extremely small. And later on in the year, when we study life science, we will see a large number of aquatic microorganisms that inhabit that environment. Aquatic habitats contain more types of organisms than land habitats do. Most of the Earth's surface is water, so most of it is found on our surface. About 71% of our planet is covered by water, and most of that water is salt water found in the oceans. Roughly 97% of the water that we find on our planet is salt water. Only 3% of that water is fresh water. Of that 3% that's fresh water, about 2/3 is frozen in huge masses of ice near the North and South poles. About 1/3 of the fresh water is underground. And a tiny fraction of fresh water occurs in lakes and rivers. And an even smaller amount is found in the atmosphere in the form of water vapor, that gaseous form of water. So this picture represents the same thing that we just talked about. 97% of the world's water is salt water. Fresh water makes up 3%. Of that 3%, water vapor is 0.04%. Ice is 69%, groundwater is 30%, and the lakes and rivers make up about 2.26%. Our oceans. The Pacific Ocean is the largest and is greater than the total amount of land on our planet. So the Pacific Ocean is found here. The Atlantic is the second largest, found between the Americas and Africa and Europe. The Indian Ocean, it's deeper than the Atlantic Ocean. The Arctic Ocean surrounds the North Pole. The Southern Ocean is that vast area that borders Antarctica, and it is one of the large sections of ocean found on our planet as well. Ice. Much of the fresh water on Earth is found in the form of ice sheets, much like this one. Ice sheets cover much of Greenland and Antarctica. Right there are those two areas of our globe that are made up mostly of ice sheets. Icebergs are floating chunks of ice that break off of ice sheets. The picture on the bottom right shows an iceberg forming. This process is called calving, where a large ice sheet drops off a section of ice into the ocean. Rivers and lakes. North America's 5 Great Lakes contain fresh water, as do many other small rivers and lakes. Lakes Michigan, Superior, Huron, Erie, and Ontario are the 5 Great Lakes. Of those 5 Great Lakes, they contain about 20% of all of the water that is fresh water on our planet. Groundwater. Some of the fresh water on Earth is found underground. This picture represents groundwater, water that would be found in an aquifer. An aquifer is an area of gravel or sand that holds water in the pore spaces and the empty spaces between those rocks. When it rains or snows, the water that doesn't evaporate soaks into the ground. The water trickles through spaces between particles of soil and rock, and it eventually fills the empty spaces around the rock, and that leaves this groundwater stored within the rock. Far more fresh water is located underground than in all of Earth's lakes and rivers. So what is the water cycle? The water cycle. It is the continuous process by which water moves from Earth's surface to the atmosphere and back, and it's driven by energy from the sun and gravity. Evaporation. Evaporation is the part of the water cycle. It is the process by which molecules at the surface of a liquid absorb enough energy to change to a gaseous state. So solar energy drives this process. The water vapor gains energy, or the liquid water gains energy from the sun. It turns to water vapor, and then it's stored inside of our atmosphere. Water continuously evaporates from the surface of bodies of water, such as oceans and lakes, as well as from soil and your skin. Transpiration. It's the release of water vapor by the leaves of plants. So plants are continuously giving off water vapor. This process is called transpiration. Condensation. Condensation helps to form clouds. This is when water vapor loses energy and the water molecules come closer together, forming a liquid again. So as water vapor cools, it loses energy. The loss of energy causes water molecules to stick back together, forming liquid water in the atmosphere. Water falls as precipitation once it has gained enough mass and it's gained enough weight to have gravity enact on it. So water that falls to Earth as rain, snow, hail, or sleet is called precipitation. Most precipitation falls back into the oceans, mostly because the majority of our surface is covered with oceans. Some falls back on land and either evaporates or it runs off the surface in the form of streams or rivers. Most of the water that falls on land seeps into the ground and it produces groundwater. Precipitation is the source of almost all fresh water. So using your knowledge of the water cycle, fill out this chart inside of your notes. Your chart should include evaporation, condensation, precipitation, runoff, and transpiration.